I want you to look at the majestic skyline of Chicago, Illinois. It's a city of steel, ambition, and secrets. Now, picture a small, quiet brownstone in the heart of Chicago's Hyde Park, the kind of house where everything seems solid, immovable, and safe. That was my childhood home. My mother always told me, Maya, your memories are locked behind walls for a reason. Leave them there. I never understood what she meant until a few months ago, when she died suddenly. I inherited the house, and with it, I inherited a nightmare. I was renovating the dusty basement, the coldest, darkest part of our home in Chicago, when I saw it, a small, strangely discolored patch of cement behind a bookshelf. I stared at that patch, and a forgotten memory, a night, 30 years ago, came rushing back, the sound of a muffled scream and my mother's whisper, terrifyingly clear, the secret stays in the wall. The wall was supposed to keep the cold out, but it was keeping the truth in. I took a sledgehammer and shattered the plaster. The dust settled, and there it was, a human skull, staring out at me from the brickwork of my Chicago home. Not a Halloween prop. Real. I realized then that the woman who gave me life, the woman who raised me in this beautiful, brutal city of Chicago, Illinois, was a murderer. But when I found the handwritten note hidden beside the body, the horror turned to a crushing, agonizing love. The crime was a secret, but the truth was an act of a mother's ultimate sacrifice. This is the story of the day I learned the real price of silence, deep in the heart of Chicago. This is a cold case 30 years in the making, and it involves every corner of my life in Chicago, Illinois. If you're watching this from Chicago or anywhere in the US, I need you to share this story. Hit the like button and subscribe, because the truth about the wall deserves to be heard. I am Maya, and for 20 years, I successfully ran from Chicago. Not physically, but emotionally. I became a highly successful photojournalist, always chasing stories far away from the heavy, brick reality of my childhood home in Chicago, Illinois. That house, located in the prestigious but aging Hyde Park neighborhood, felt like a silent, formidable beast. My mother, Eleanor, was the keeper of that silence. After my father passed, it was just the two of us. She was tough, resilient, and fiercely protective. But she had a chilling aversion to the basement and an unshakable rule: never move the bookshelf in the utility room. Her death was sudden, a quick, brutal stroke. The shock was immense. I returned to Chicago to handle the estate. The house was enormous, cold, and filled with my mother's ghost. Every floorboard creaked a memory, and every window framed the towering, distant cityscape of Chicago. The city felt indifferent to my grief. One cold, unforgiving December afternoon in Chicago, I finally decided to deal with the basement. It was a utilitarian space, filled with dusty tools and storage boxes. But in the corner, dominating one wall, was that mahogany bookshelf. I remembered asking her as a child, "What's behind the shelf, Mom?" Her eyes, normally warm, had turned to chips of ice. "Nothing, Maya. Just the wall. And the wall is not your concern." That moment, right there in Chicago, Illinois, was the first time I felt fear of my own mother. The renovation crew insisted the shelf had to go. As they hauled it away, the sight of the uncovered wall made my stomach clench. The entire wall was rough, old, solid brick, except for one small section, about 5 feet high and 2 feet wide. It was patched haphazardly with smooth, almost creamy white cement. It screamed modern repair against ancient masonry. It was the color of a fresh scar on old skin. I instinctively told the crew, "Stop. I'll handle this section myself." The patch was perfectly located where the old chimney access would have been, a deep recess. My hands started to shake. I went upstairs, poured myself a drink, and looked out at the lights of Chicago. They looked like cold, glittering diamonds, utterly disconnected from the horror in my basement. The forgotten memory was sharp now. I was 7. I was sick. I remember my mother's intense struggle with the man who rented the basement apartment, a man named James. He had been aggressive, loud, and demanding. And then, a sickening thud, followed by a terrifying stillness. Later that night, I woke up to a scratching sound and the smell of wet cement. My mother was whispering, not to me, but to the wall, "You're safe now. The secret stays in the wall." I drove through the freezing streets of Chicago, Illinois, to a hardware store and bought a sledgehammer and safety gear. There was no going back. I couldn't live in this house in Chicago knowing what might be behind that patch. The uncertainty was a slow-motion murder of my peace of mind. Back in the basement, the air was thick with the dust of decades. I raised the sledgehammer. "This is for you, Mom," I whispered, tears freezing on my cheeks in the Chicago cold. The first blow sent a shockwave through the house. The modern cement cracked and crumbled easily. The smell was immediate and overwhelming, not just dust, but the unmistakable, metallic scent of decay, trapped and concentrated. I kept hitting, fueled by a terrifying cocktail of fear, rage, and overwhelming curiosity. The final blow broke through the old brick beneath the cement. I dropped the hammer. The flashlight beam pierced the cavity. There was no treasure, no hidden fortune. There was only a huddled bundle of moldy fabric, and nestled within it, staring blankly out of the wall of my Chicago home, was the pale, skeletal curve of a human skull. It had been bricked into the wall like a gruesome architectural feature. I sank to my knees, the reality of the murder slamming into me with the force of the sledgehammer. I had found James. Chapter 3: The Diary's Confession and Mother's Sacrifice. I didn't call the Chicago Police Department immediately. I was frozen, terrified of implicating my mother, even though she was dead. I had to know the why. Carefully, wearing thick gloves, I removed the remains. Inside the tattered remains of James's jacket, wrapped in a brittle plastic bag, was my mother's old, compact writing journal, the kind she always carried with her in Chicago. The final few pages were dated 30 years ago, written in a frantic, hurried script. September 14th, 1995. Chicago, Illinois. The heat is unbearable tonight. But the cold inside me is worse. James tried to hurt Maya. He thought because I was alone, he thought I wouldn't fight back. I hit him. Just once, with the iron poker by the fireplace. He fell. I checked. He's gone. Gone. My God, I killed him. In my own house in Chicago. September 15th, 1995. Chicago, Illinois. I can't call the police. I can't. They won't believe a single mother in Hyde Park over a man with connections. They'll take Maya away. They'll say I lured him. I have to protect her. I dragged him to the utility room. It's deep enough. I bought cement from the store downtown. The stench is already terrible. My hands are ruined. My soul is ruined. But Maya is safe. The wall will be the witness. Final entry, September 16th, 1995. It's done. The wall is smooth. The secret is buried. I am a murderer walking the streets of Chicago, Illinois. But every moment I spend with my daughter is worth this burden. I will live my life in silent penance, just so Maya can grow up free, safe, and happy in this city. I will never tell her. I love you, my sweet girl. Forgive me. I slumped against the cold Chicago brick. My successful, tough mother wasn't a cold-blooded murderer. She was a desperate hero. She didn't bury a body, she buried the evidence of an attack on her child. She sacrificed her peace of mind for 3 decades, walking past that bookshelf every day, a stone wall dividing her from her terrifying secret, all for me. The weight of that devotion in the heart of Chicago was heavier than the sledgehammer. My tears were no longer tears of grief or shock, but of agonizing, profound love for the woman I never truly understood. I finally called the Chicago Police Department, CPD. Detective Morales and a team arrived. They treated the basement like an archaeological site. The press descended on Hyde Park, screaming headlines about the Hyde Park wall corpse. I told them the whole truth, presenting the diary as the key piece of evidence. Detective Morales, a seasoned Chicago veteran, studied the diary, then looked at me. Your mother carried this secret for 30 years, Miss Preston, just to protect you. That kind of love, it's a hell of a burden. The case became a sensation across Chicago, Illinois, and then the entire U.S. The legal system had to grapple with the decades-old crime of self-defense hidden by fear. The official verdict was clear: the case was ruled as justifiable homicide. My mother had been legally cleared 3 decades too late. The law finally had recognized her terror and her sacrifice. The emotional impact on me was devastating. I spent weeks walking the streets of Chicago, looking at the buildings, the L trains, the freezing lakefront. Every corner of Chicago was a reminder of the life my mother could have had, the peace she deserved. She had been my hero, the guardian of my innocence, choosing the dark truth of the wall over the fleeting light of a carefree life. I realized that my mother's greatest photograph wasn't a scenic view of the Chicago skyline, but the secret she hid in plain sight. I went back to the basement. The wall was sealed now, legally clean, but forever imprinted in my mind. I couldn't sell the house. It was a monument to her love. I decided to stay in Chicago, Illinois, and use my skills as a photojournalist to document stories of others, stories of hidden sacrifices, of unspoken acts of heroism, and the secrets people bury deep within themselves to survive. The wall in the basement is now covered by a magnificent, custom-built bookcase. But I know what it holds. And whenever the cold wind of Chicago blows, I hear my mother's voice, not in a scream, but in a whisper of love and eternal protection.